Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's going to be a little bit different. I just wanted to explain something that we get asked a lot, or that we talk about a lot with a lot of patients throughout the week, and that's chronic pain. Now, chronic pain is something that affects a lot of people in a lot of different ways. Now, the amount of chronic pain in the world is huge. It's estimated that about 1.5 billion people in the world today, or thereabouts, suffer from some form of chronic pain. Now that essentially works out to be 1 in 5-ish sort of people. So considering the modern family can be that plus more, unfortunately there's every chance that either you have chronic pain or that you know someone very close to you that you care about that has chronic pain. And what a lot of people, I guess, experience with chronic pain is there's still a lot of mystery around why it happens, why it hangs around, why it doesn't go away. And it's not helped by, I guess, our industry in a sense where we don't often give people answers. We don't necessarily make people feel like there's a path out of it. It's often once you've got it, that's now you, that's a label that you have. So in today's video, I just wanted to talk about the types of conversations that we have with people every day in terms of what chronic pain actually is. And then how you can start to take steps to sort of dig yourself out of that hole long term. Now, the important place to start here is this idea of pain. And we've talked about pain before previously, but the idea of pain is a little bit different to what we often think of it as. If you were to take a moment to think about what pain is for you, most people associate pain with tissue damage, and we often think that because something's injured, that's what gives us pain. And often that is the case, but it doesn't account for all pain, because there can be certainly a lot of pain without damage, tissue damage, but there can also be different severities of pain depending on the same, they can come from the same issue. If two people have the same problems, the pain isn't the same. And for a long time, we haven't really done a good job of explaining why that is. But that's what we'd like to talk about today. So when we come back to this idea of pain, where pain isn't this tissue-specific, damage-orientated thing, it's just your brain's perception of threat. Now, injury and damage can certainly fall within that umbrella of a threat, but the overriding feature of pain is it's a protective mechanism that your body gives you or sends out when it feels threatened, as a way to try and get you out of that. It ties into this fight or flight response that I'm sure a lot of people have heard about before, but it's this idea that when your body's faced with a danger of some sort, it can be mental or physical, it needs you to do something about it. Either you can hit that head on and fight that, or you can sort of have the tools to get away and be safe and to live to fight another day. So what we need to take from this is that because pain is your brain's interpretation of threat, it's heavily influenced by your body's general perception of threat day to day. So what we see a lot with chronic pain is it comes back into a nervous system that's potentially already feeling challenged and stressed and threatened consistently throughout the day before you even had your pain. Now, a common issue with pain is back pain. A lot of people who have chronic pain have chronic back pain. And we look at chronic pain as pain that's been there for, it used to be, I think, 3 months, a decade ago, but it's become more widely accepted to be sort of 6 months now. So if you have any pain for longer than 6 months, then you have chronic pain potentially. So, and a common form of that is back pain. Now, some people can wake up one day, hurt their back, be fine in 2 or 3 days and feel good again. Excuse me. Other people can have back pain for years. And like I said before, we haven't done a really great job of trying to sort of explain why those two things happen. But we can start to piece that together when we start to think about what the nervous system is doing. So again, this idea that your brain and nervous system potentially are already feeling challenged and stressed throughout the day, and then you put something on top of that like an overloaded or irritated tissue, it amplifies that, it puts a pain tax on top of that, and your experience can be much worse than someone else who doesn't go into it with an already heightened stressed nervous system. And a good example of this that we sort of use a lot is If you can imagine those days where you're, maybe not so much at the moment, but when you're running late for an appointment and you're already stressed before you leave the house, you're rushing around, you're driving to get there as fast as possible, and then all of a sudden you're stuck behind this slow-moving car. And in that moment, you hate that car, it's frustrating, it makes you more stressed. It's not doing anything specifically to you, it's just another thing that's creating extra stress in your situation. Now, if we flip that over and say the next day you had another appointment that you were running late for, but you were able to put some things into place that got you there on time, then you should find that if you were stuck behind the same slow-moving car, it's just not as stressful as before because you weren't as stressed before you got to that point. So it's not the car's fault in front of you that's the problem, it's the fact that you were already stressed before you even got into that point. And that being stressed beforehand is a crucial piece of the puzzle to a lot of chronic pain and potentially chronic illness in terms of what it does to your fight or flight response and how that raises the alarm system or the alarm bells throughout your entire body. So the catch with this is, or the key with this to have a heightened nervous system is you don't have to feel stressed, anxious, frustrated, angry. You don't have to feel depressed or any of those sorts of extreme sensations. Your body just has to be more on edge than usual, or it has to be more on edge than it could be, and that can be your usual. So with patients with chronic pain, unfortunately what we can see a lot, once we start asking questions and once you guys or the patient feels more comfortable opening up, people who have significant chronic pain in that maybe it really impacts your day-to-day life. It stops you from doing what you want to do. It's a mental battle more than anything. Unfortunately, when you take a step back, you may find that there's been some trauma or something horrible, like truly horrible, that's happened in your past or is happening to you now. Whether that be things like physical abuse, sexual abuse, mental abuse. It can be anything that's been in your past, but even in today's world, whether it's maybe poor relationships, everything that's happening in the world today with this virus. It can be a whole range of things that keep your body heightened. And instead of being this relaxed, sleeping dog without a care in the world, which is potentially where our nervous system's baseline should be, we're often this dog that's at the front door, at the front fence, barking consistently day after day after day in this heightened state. And then when you add some musculoskeletal dysfunction on top of that heightened state, then we have a recipe for chronic pain, because chronic pain doesn't hang around because the aspects of your physical injury or your physical complaints aren't settling. It's that complaint has been encased in a foot of concrete that's made from a lot of the trauma and the constant stress that you may have in your day-to-day life or have had in your day-to-day life. So the way we've looked at chronic pain for a long time in the industry, and I know I used to see this a lot back home in Australia, is that we still look at chronic pain as a physical problem. But what we tend to find is that yes, there is a physical issue there. It may not necessarily be any worse than anyone else's back pain, but the people that have chronic pain have this foot of concrete of emotional stress, heightened nervous system related symptoms that sort of stop that pain from going away. So when we look at trying to treat your chronic pain, we've often looked at getting you stronger, we've looked at getting you fitter. There's a lot of psychology or psychological help that can really assist people to come to terms with a lot of the issues that they've had in the past, and that's obviously a valid treatment. But we haven't necessarily talked about this in terms of a physiological problem, in terms of a nervous system that's working much harder, running a lot hotter than it could. But we want to sort of touch on a couple of ideas maybe towards the end of this video in a little bit, so that you feel like you can take some steps to chip away at that concrete and get to that sort of musculoskeletal issue underneath. So I think it's really important to make a reference to chronic pain not necessarily being a physical problem that's any better or worse than someone else, although it can be or it may not be. But I really need to make a big point about how the health and the function of your nervous system really dictates how much pain you get, how long that pain hangs around for. So as I said, I don't think we've done a really good job of tying those things in together. We've sort of divorced them and said, well, there's a physical issue here. Maybe you've got depression, maybe you've got other issues as well. That's a mental issue altogether. But like a lot of things, we forget that everything's connected, everything's related. So, and the flip side of that is we know that a lot of the mental and physical things are potentially just the root of some nervous system dysfunction underneath. So what I would ask anyone to do who's watching this is, if you know someone who has chronic pain, who's been in pain for a long time, show them this video. Give them a chance to maybe have a listen to what we have to say and see if that fits in with their experience. If you feel comfortable asking them about their past or even what's going on at the moment, it could almost guarantee that there's something going on that's left a mark or is leaving a mark on their nervous system that you can't change. But what we can do is we can change how your body is responding to those threats. Now, back to that example that we spoke about, being late and being stuck behind the car. You can't do anything about that car in front of you going any faster, nor should you have to. Obviously, you can maybe be a little bit more prepared so you're not late for that appointment. But even if you can't do that, if you're busy, you've got a whole bunch of things on, what you can control in that scenario every single time is your body's reaction to both of those variables. Now, if your stress level is a 9 out of 10 and you're running late, there's things you can do to bring that down to a 4 or a 5 with relative ease, so that the consequences of those variables aren't as severe. And in physical therapy, physiotherapy, depending on where in the world you are watching this, the key to trying to take those steps to conquer your chronic pain lies with techniques to get your nervous system from functioning highly every single day that bring you back down to a more comfortable baseline. So if you have fibromyalgia, a lot of the chronic pains that we look at in terms of back pain, even knee pains, anything that's chronic headaches, things that have been there and they don't have to be there, and you don't feel like you've got answers as to why they're there, there's a very, very high likelihood that it comes back to what your nervous system's doing. So we won't go through these exercises today. We'll talk about them, but we'll leave those for another video perhaps over the next couple of days. But for me personally, what I find can be really useful for a lot of patients in trying to get their nervous system to drop down and influence their pain and how they feel, number one is deep breathing. It often seems a little bit tacky, a little bit silly to say that deep breathing is really important, but under all of that, all deep breathing does is it cues your body into certain physiological states. So we know that when you're stressed, we're often chest breathing, it's more shallow breath work, it's more up in your neck and your shoulders. Similar to, say, if you're sitting at a desk all day, or if you've just run, 15 miles, you've run a marathon and you're breathing in that really stressed state. And it's similar to, I guess, that dog, that sleeping dog that's lying next to you. It often has its mouth shut and it's often breathing through its nose in a really calm fashion. Now, we can take these principles and get you to practice them religiously so that you can keep telling your body that you need it to calm down and need to come down. So something like box breathing, which we've covered before. There's a method called the Wim Hof method, which is brilliant. So I'd urge you to Google that just so that you can understand what his method can do. It's a whole range of breathing exercises that you can get you from A to B, but the point is that you start doing them. Now, with anything that's chronic, it's cemented in there pretty heavily. So if someone comes into the clinic and they have a stiff ankle, a chronically stiff ankle that's been that way for 5 years, 10 years, there's some really powerful ankle stretches that you can do to free that up to a certain degree straight away. But it's almost impossible to make that change in an instant. So you might be able to chisel away a little bit of that stiffness in the first session, but it's then up to you to keep chipping away at that and making sure that that range of motion comes back over time. Hopefully not over a long period of time, but you've got to keep seeing that change. Not only that, we need to make sure that when you are trying to free up your ankle, that you're also addressing the things that have caused that stiffness, whether it's a heeled shoe, flip-flops or thongs, sitting, whatever it is. Those two things need to be addressed for this to consistently get better over time. And it's no different to a nervous system that's heightened. We know that it being heightened is there for a reason. So if you can change some of those stressful variables that you picked up on from a previous conversation, please do. Take some steps to value those issues, see what you can do to change them. Unfortunately, a lot of people can't, but that's okay, because we can change, again, how your body reacts to that. And that's where the deep breathing comes into it. So when you do something like box breathing or the Wim Hof method, it's important to take stock of how you feel to begin with. Do your cycles of 30 to 40 breaths if it's Wim Hof, or 5 seconds in, pause, out, pause, hold, all these sorts of things. Make sure that at the end of it, that you feel like you've dropped down a gear. And it's that dropping down a gear that you've got to fight for every single day, as often as you feel you can, to start to chip away at that foot of concrete around your musculoskeletal dysfunction, or the issues that's underneath. So you've got to keep that up. You've got to keep obviously working on all the exercises that you've been given, the strength work, the balance work, any of the stretches that you feel like are going to help your musculoskeletal issue. But I want to place those on the step below the nervous system side of things. If you can work on both at the same time, that's obviously important. But the nervous system is by far the most important part of this sort of thing. So look, this video's gone on for a little bit longer than I anticipated, but the main point I wanted to get across is, despite chronic pain coming across as a mystery to a lot of people, and even to a lot of health professionals, to be fair, it's not. It's a very real expression of a nervous system that is threatened. It's constantly threatened, and the response and how it expresses itself is different in a lot of ways, but the root cause of a lot of chronic pain is a nervous system that's working a lot harder than it should, and we need to give you some confidence and some direction to use some exercises or some breathing techniques to get that down. Now, breathing techniques are hopefully helpful for you. 2 or 3 other things that you can do. One of the ones that I find really useful myself and for my patients are cold showers, or the hot-cold contrast. So 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. And just to touch on this one quickly, the key with a cold shower is that it is a form of a threat. So if your nervous system's already threatened, jumping into a cold shower straight away may not necessarily be the best thing for you. But the key is that we want you to start at a temperature that's comfortable, and then just turn it down until you get to a temperature that's on the edge of being comfortable. And then use that slow, deep, controlled breathing to control your body's reaction. And then after a second or two, you'll acclimatize and you can turn it down a little bit lower. And you just want to hover and just comfortably deep breathe in and out for 30 seconds or a minute, and keep turning the temperature down as low as you can till you can tolerate that. And then you can contrast between the cold and the hot. So turn it straight back up to hot again, straight back to cold again. And it's a bit of a nervous system reset. It's great if you can't sleep. It's great if you're trying to get this sort of stuff to drop. So I guess the idea here is, please think of your pain as a perception of threat. And it's important that if you've got all these other threatening things around you, they may completely be changing and challenging your body's ability to feel good. So hopefully that's some insights. As I said, if you know someone who has chronic pain or has had pain that's been going on for a long time, anyone that doesn't have answers, please show them this video, and hopefully it can be a positive step for them, or the first step for some people to making significant inroads into your aches and pains. So as always, if you have any questions, if you have any issues, please let us know. It'd be really helpful if you could subscribe. It really helps support the channel. It helps these messages, these videos get out to more people, which at the end of the day, we just want to help as many people as we can in ways that they may not be helped otherwise. And as I said, we're putting out these daily videos, so please follow along, and we'll see you in the next one.